food insecurity does multiply stress on active duty personnel, and it diminishes the well-being among the service members to quite an extent. Last year's floods, which caused compounded damages and economic losses of around rupees 30 billion to the agriculture sector, livestock, and affected food production and availability. Swathes of farmland were wiped out, aggravating the wheat crop crisis. It is sad that Pakistan has become a net wheat importer from an exporter, as it has been importing nearly 3 million tons of wheat every year to meet the needs. What's your take on this current wheat crisis, and are there any chances that we are going to be able to overcome it anytime soon?
I think, as you said, that Pakistan since beginning, since our childhood, we are saying that Pakistan is an agrarian economy, a country where agriculture sector has been considered as the backbone of the country, of the economy. But sadly, what we see is a shift in the overall components of the economy, be it the industry, be it the agriculture, or other main pillars of the economy. That's because, as I said in the beginning, that how the overall shift in the global economy is very much evident in the overall global economy. That how, because of the issue of the global economic model, because of the neoliberal economic model, how the shifts in the agriculture sector, not only in the agriculture sector, but in the trade sector, in the regional connectivity, how that has been more or less linked to that these developing countries like Pakistan need to be focused more on being considered, as I need to put it more explicitly, that how this shift in the global economic model has made countries like Pakistan dependent on the imports from the Western countries. Like we, being an agriculture country, we as you see that in 1990s, when the World Trade, WTO, under their WTO agreements, when agriculture sector was also being brought under the WTO agreement. So under those agreements, it was being said that the governments are not allowed to subsidize agriculture sector. Now we see that despite the countries like Pakistan, developing countries, not subsidizing the agriculture sector, because we, under the WTO convention, we cannot do that. But we see, as of today, the developed countries are still subsidizing their agriculture sector. Now that I think is the main primacy of the shifts in the overall production capacity, agricultural production capacity of country like Pakistan, that we were being dependent on imports from the north, so that the needs of developing countries can be met through import of even basic foods like wheat. And that's what we are seeing at display in the moment in Pakistan. Now, what the government is doing, the government is doing the policies right at the moment. What the government can do is how it needs to broaden the per acre yield of the productivity. Now, for that, you cannot do that without doing research, that what seeds are needed so that the yield of your agricultural productivity can be enhanced. For that, research is much needed in the agriculture sector also. Now, in that situation, I think the Ministry of Food Security and Research Center is at the right position to re-emphasize that how we need to shift our focus from more being dependent to our indigenous model, which was very much our own. It was our own, that we were very much indigenous since the beginning. But since the shift in the global economy, we are now being left dependent on imports, like the very basic food like wheats. Absolutely. So that, I think, very important for countries like Pakistan to re-emphasize the shift, redirect the shift from being import dependent to remodeling our mode of production in sectors like agriculture sector, which is very much possible as of now if we can do that.
So what we are talking about here is access to food, let alone nutritious quality food. Now, this brings us to the added issue of nutrition insecurity and malnutrition. We have child stunting rates, which are one of the highest in the world. We have very high infant mortality and morbidity rates, and they're all directly or indirectly linked with food insecurity. What is suffering here is the country's valuable human resource, if you look at it from that point of view, that we are compromising on our human resource. Now, this also contributes to low human development index. Do we also take into account the issue of nutrition insecurity in our public policy making when we are talking of food insecurity?
I think because when we talk of food security, the very basic concept when we define it is that a country is secured in terms of its food when all the people have access to sufficient, nutritious, safe, and they are able to maintain a healthy and active life. Now, that's a basic definition of food security, right? You cannot have food security without ensuring nutritious food and a healthy diet to all of its population at all time. Now, that's a very, very tall ambition for food security to achieve in terms of, in countries like Pakistan. Am I audible to you? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Am I audible?
Yes, loud and clear.
No. Yeah. So in that sense, I think the discourse on food security internationally and within Pakistan also is shifting. That how we are able to provide nutritious, safe, and a healthy diet to all of its population all the time, given the situation that we are at the moment in terms of our economy, in terms of other things. Now, again, I would refer to that this discourse of food security has come from this discourse on food security needs to be broadened more in terms of how we are able to ensure nutritious food to our population. In that sense, I would say that if we talk of food security today, we should focus more on how people should have the right to healthy and culturally appropriate food produced domestically and through sustainable methods. Right? Now, that's an academic debate that people are doing. That the current model of food production is not sustainable in order to ensure food security, nutritious also, healthy also to its people all the time. That is not sustainable. That we have seen that this current model of food system, the global food system, has failed to deliver the food security worldwide. It though has benefited few few of the people who are able to do that, but majority of the people, if we talk of today, as I said, over 1 billion people today is facing hunger, acute hunger. Now, that means us as an academic, as living in the policy circles, that we need to redefine the discourse on food security. We cannot say that you should continue with the same system which has repeatedly failed to deliver in terms of securing the safety and healthy life of people, and then we do some cosmetic changes and say that now we would be able to have a secure population. That cannot be done. And that even in the Western scholarship that is coming up is saying that even ecologically, this method of food system has failed. It has failed our ecology. It has failed our overall biodiversity and our people in particular. So in that matter, we need to question. As an academic, I'm questioning even the very definition of food security for countries like Pakistan. We cannot afford to ensure food nutritious. I think it's a very tall expectation from
in fact, I think it's more challenging in Pakistan.
More challenging.
And to have
yes, and that I will re-emphasize it.
Are not aware of what a balanced diet means.
Yeah, and that I think is that if we need to make a sustainable food production, which is domestically produced, which is sustainable to even our ecology and our rivers and our overall biodiversity, that in the long run would be in a position to ensure that we would be in a position to provide nutritious, healthy, and a balanced diet to our population. So I think, as I said, our policymakers need to at least to make themselves ready for the challenges of today. That the challenges of today cannot be dealt with the policy prescriptions of 1960s and 70s or 80s.
And that is, if at all, food security is a priority with our policymakers and with
yes, if at all. And yeah, and I'm seeing that we deal we almost on daily basis. We interact with policymakers, with practitioners, and it is something very unfortunate that they still are not ready to the challenges of today. The challenges that we, even after going through COVID situation and many floods that we have, not even Pakistan, but we see it in Morocco, where there were a devastating kind of earthquake in Libya. Now we still are not in a position to learn and question even the very discourse. See, if we are not ready to even question the discourse on certain, be it food security, be it on trade, or be it in overall global food chain. When we talk of global food chain, now that I think cannot even ensure food security or food production.
That's very, very true, and I think that's what my next question is about. That the public probably also has a role to play, because these are very tough times. And as we head towards some of the toughest, we're also heading into the festive season in Pakistan, a time of lavish feasts and superfluous wedding banquets where people overindulge. And worse, there's lots of food wastage. Now, this is a crass display and squandering of resources that could be used to feed hundreds, if not thousands, who go without food day after day. And also keeping in mind that those attending to these feasts, the waiters, the servers, the helpers, the chefs, most of them probably fare from the food insecure part of Pakistan. And this makes it worse. Now, this is the time when I think people also need to play their role beyond whose responsibility it is to fix the food crisis, beyond laws and legislatures. We need to start realizing that it's not just the state's responsibility. We have to play a role too. So what mechanisms do you think we can put in place to ensure that the public can participate to feed the hungry? Do we need some type of campaigns, feed the hungry campaigns? Or do you think that people need to contribute to fast track government's efforts? What do you think we should do in this kind of a scenario?
See, I agree that as a society in countries, mostly in South Asian countries like Pakistan, there's a lot of display when it comes to food during festivities, during other ceremonies. Now, I think again I would say that there again comes the role of the state. That even if the state is not able to maintain what is needed to be done at the state level, and obviously once it is done, once it is ensured at the state level, I'm sure that would automatically translate to the individual levels, to their behaviors, to their overall conduct of their life and their lifestyle. See, just take an example of water, another crisis that countries like Pakistan is facing. That we see that water is not it's not an issue of water crisis, but it is an issue sufficiency of water crisis. It's not issue of sufficiency of water crisis. Rather, it's an issue of how efficiently you are using the water, right, in countries like Pakistan. So by linking that, it also displays in our overall conduct of life, be it with food, be it of others. But then again, it is the state that needs to ensure the kind of situation that is needed, how these festivities needs to be curtailed, how the display of the haves and have-nots should be curbed through state interventions. You cannot expect people to behave in a certain way, which I think is very rarely displayed in countries like Pakistan, unless there is a state which ensures that if you go beyond what is prescribed, you will be punished for that.
Yeah.